I'm on a journey to a world where the impossible becomes possible.
Oh, this is really exciting.
With exclusive access to the world's most impressive feats of engineering.
Wow. It's scale, Richard.
I'll meet desert daredevils.
Swing out, they set off the dynamite, then swing back.
And pioneers of land and sea.
I mean, the proportions of these structures are just immense.
Who risked it all.
I'm very aware that there are things out here.
When they picked him out, 5 minutes later, he died.
I'll uncover the secrets of the most extraordinary structures ever built. This time, I'm in America's hottest desert.
Wow.
Where struggling settlers plagued by a temperamental, volatile water source.
They need something really big to control the biggest, longest, wildest river in the West.
Require an audacious feat of engineering if they want to survive.
They overbuilt these tunnels, they overbuilt the dam, everything is overbuilt.
A project on this scale would take world-class problem solving.
Scientists actually believed that it would throw the Earth off its axis.
An army of workers past.
There were ice scalers who fell to their death.
And present.
We've got an invasive species out here.
Oh, no way. That's completely blocked.
And enough concrete to circle the world.
6.6 million tons.
This is the story of the Hoover Dam.
This is the Colorado River. And over its 1,400-mile length, it snakes its way from the Rocky Mountains down to the Gulf of California. But I'm not here to admire the river, nor the Black Canyon through which it runs, impressive as they are.
Instead, I'm heading to explore one of the greatest feats of engineering in the world, the Hoover Dam.
And it is immense. Even from this far back, I can feel its presence just looming over me.
When it was completed in 1935, it was the largest concrete structure on Earth. But it only came about because of the tempestuous flow of the mighty Colorado River. Thousands of fresh settlers were arriving in the southwest region, which until the late 1800s was mainly populated by nomadic native tribes. They wanted to build new lives in the desert and farm the land, but the river, untamed, was not their friend.
Before the dam was built, the whole area often suffered from terrible droughts in the summer months, and then in the springtime, when the snow and ice melted in the Rocky Mountains, upstream, the Colorado River would regularly burst its banks and flood the surrounding areas.
A brave proposal was put forward to try and stop this relentless cycle that tormented those who'd made their home in the desert. It would come to be known as the Hoover Dam.
When work began on its construction, many believed it was impossible to tame the wild Colorado River.
The river was a lifeline that flowed through the steep mountains, deep canyons and arid deserts of Southwest America on its way to Mexico and the Gulf of California, sustaining communities along the way with its much-needed supply of water. When it reached the barren desert plains, the Colorado streamed through the driest parts of America where temperatures could reach over 50 degrees. But because of the river's unreliability, trying to make a living along its shores was a risky choice. The authorities wanted to find a way to harness its power and encourage more people to come to the Southwest and settle around it.
They need something really big to control the biggest, longest, wildest river in the West.
In 1920, the US Bureau of Reclamation, part of the Department of the Interior, came up with a plan to dam the Colorado River and create a system that would not only redistribute water to the neighboring states, but also provide them with power. Nothing like this had been attempted at such scale before. the Hoover Dam would be one of the first arch gravity dams in the world. The theory goes that as the dam curves around upstream, it uses the water pressure building up behind the wall to hold it in place. Clever, but on this scale, completely untested.
We're talking about the biggest dam ever built, more than twice as tall as Big Ben. It's a massive project that requires massive innovation.
No one thought that they could build something this big and hold that much water behind it. Even at the time, scientists actually believed that once the water would pull up behind the dam, if the dam held, it would throw the Earth off its axis.
Such a demanding project was too much for one company to take on alone. In March 1931, the government awarded the contract to a consortium known as 6 companies, which put in a bid of just under $49 million to do the work. Nearly $1 billion in today's money. But before construction could start, there was a massive job to do.
They have to move the river. You talk about a challenge. They have to move the river out of the way to build the dam itself. Then get the river back where it was.
The first thing that they did was they diverted the Colorado River around this project site by building 4 diversion tunnels. 2 over here on the Arizona side, 2 more on the Nevada side.
So they're tunnels for the river to pass through this rock?
Correct, correct. And they're about 3/4 of a mile in length, 50 feet in diameter, and they were lined with concrete to allow that water to pass through safely.
Drilling the tunnels was an agonizingly slow process. And brand new techniques had to be invented if the dam had a chance of being built by the deadline. One of these was the jumbo drill.
One of the supervisors actually came up with this idea. It's like, hey, we have these long bed trucks. Why don't we build scaffolding on it? And then we could put 30 drillers in there, drill in 30 at a time, set the charges, dynamite it out, and then start all over again.
Minko B. Markov, a Bulgarian immigrant who came to work on the dam in 1931, was one of the drillers.
My grandfather would go up on the scaffolding so he could place the charges of dynamite, and then they would get the hell out of there and blast it out and then go back in and clean out what they blasted.
Well, and not only that, but after that was all mined out, they still had to line concrete inside, and that's getting into about 50 degrees centigrade inside. So it's hot, it's horrendous.
And misguided beliefs about health did nothing to help the workers.
It was an old theory that if you drank water, it caused you to cramp up. So you had people dying basically of heat prostration every other day until Harvard, I believe, came down here and was doing studies on electrolytes. And 6 companies actually mandated that the workers got designated water breaks every 30 minutes.
Work to divert the mighty Colorado River was finally completed in November 1932, ahead of schedule. But an even more perilous task had to be undertaken before construction of the dam itself could begin.
The team working on the ambitious Hoover Dam project had successfully diverted the course of the wild Colorado River to create a dry bed so that construction could begin. The first big task was to widen the canyon walls so they could build a dam big enough to hold back all the water. It was decided to employ a team of daredevils known as high scalers to blow up the rock walls bit by bit and clear the debris. They risked their lives every day to finish the job, and some aspects of their work are still being carried out today.
Good to see you. How you going? Very nice to meet you.
Corey Dixon and his modern-day rope team are responsible for maintaining the Hoover Dam in the areas you can only get to by abseiling. And I'm joining them to do a bit of essential work on the canyon walls.
We're looking for a loose rockfall.
Okay.
All right, so on an annual basis, we come out here with our geologists, and we do a complete inspection of this entire wall.
Why is it you're doing these inspections?
Right below us is the visitor center. So up top, rock of that size is insignificant.
Yeah.
Okay, a couple 100 feet down with velocity could become a major problem for somebody, right? So we want to protect the public at all times.
While the present-day rope team focuses on shoring up the canyon wall, the original high scalers were doing the opposite, breaking down the cliff.
The high scalers had one of the toughest and at the same time one of the most glamorous jobs on the dam. They will chip away at the rock, they'll put in dynamite, swing out, they set off the dynamite, then swing back to work on it some more. And they were hiring circus acrobats who were used to this kind of thing, but no net. The very few Native Americans who worked on the site, they put them in that job quite often, figuring that they were very agile and used to a lot of movement. But it required great athletic ability to be able to do the job.
Working with only a single rope, it was a perilous task.
There was an engineer one day who fell, and one high scaler swung out, grabbed his leg, and pulled him back. And there were high scalers who fell to their death as well.
To reflect the risky nature of their job, the high scalers were paid danger money of 75 cents an hour, 25 cents more than the other workers. These days, the job isn't quite what it used to be.
The dam is built. There's not much left to build onto that. Our job is maintenance and upkeep and inspection for future possible rockfall-related incidences.
That doesn't mean it comes without risk, as I'm about to find out.
Squish in. Fantastic.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Thankfully, our safety equipment is a lot more reliable than the high scalers.
We're just gonna crawl it down.
Cool, this is good for me at the moment, Corey, thank you. Well, it's getting a bit steeper now, so I'm gonna disappear.
I'm heading over the edge of the canyon with technician Liz to check the rock face for signs of trouble.
Wow! Look at that! Oh, Liz, the views you must get from your job are amazing.
Oh, yeah. Same views that they had building this place, too.
Yeah, absolutely. So what kind of things are we looking out for here?
We'll just start looking to see if there's any pileup that could potentially get washed away or the wind could blow it away. Also, vegetation could cause a problem when the roots start cracking the rock. So as we'd go down, we would just look for anything that could really cause a problem in a flash flood situation.
Yeah.
And then we will either decide if we're going to remove it or we could stack it up.
And then you've got these big nets up here as well.
Yes.
They're almost a little storage unit for you sometimes.
That'll keep all the bigger stuff. So that's the purpose of those.
I feel very comfortable.
Yeah.
But again, I'm thinking back to the high scalers.
Yeah.
It almost looked like they're just holding onto a rope with their hands and running across these cliff faces.
Yeah, they're not tied off in any way at all.
Things have moved on a lot, but you're walking in their footsteps.
Yes, and we actually use some of the same anchors that they may have used as well. So along the rock wall, there'll be bits from their big drills stuck in the wall, and they're not going anywhere. They're never coming out. So we'll use those for anchors.
Right, this area of the rock face seems to be safe, at least for now.
Okay, Rob, you're clear to climb.
Thank you.
Safe.
When construction began on the Hoover Dam in 1931, America was in the throes of the Great Depression. With unemployment rates at over 15% and rising steeply, many families were left homeless and battling starvation.
In this desperate economic climate, news of the proposed dam spread like wildfire. And more than 5,000 workers flocked to the Black Canyon, many with their wives and children in tow, in the hope of finding employment. But with the nearest city more than 30 miles away, there was nowhere for the would-be workers and their families to stay. The solution was to create a purpose-built, brand new city right here in the desert.
Boulder City, built on government-owned land, began rising from the Mojave Desert in 1931. Nevada-based historian Clayton D. White has promised to tell me more about it.
As I understand it, this is one of the original stores that was here in Boulder City when, all the activity was starting to happen.
Yes.
What was here before any work on the dam began,
There's
really?
nothing here. And people started to migrate in, though. Some of them probably had to walk across the country. When you're thinking about it, how could they afford to travel in a car across country? Pay for gas and food. They lived in tents and shacks and any way they could because they knew that work was coming.
Boulder City was designed to cater for this growing, work-hungry population. Makeshift tents were replaced by dormitories for single men and hastily constructed dwellings for families called dingbat houses.
2 men could build a house in 12 hours.
In 12 hours?
Yes.
Were they identical properties that were being put up then?
And the joke is that they looked so much alike that you could look up and see a stranger in your house because it looks just like his house.
In just over a year, a city infrastructure had been created, with sewage, water, and electricity being provided for 2,500 residents. A school, church, and entertainment facilities sprang up, including a cinema with brand new technology, air conditioning.
You're talking about people who are coming here to start businesses.
Like this store?
Like this store.
And many others that would have been up and down the high street.
And restaurants and hardware stores. All kinds of amenities that families need.
But not everyone was welcome in Boulder City or on the dam site.
Going through these archive photos here, Clayton. Now this is from autumn 1931. And it strikes me that they're all white faces here.
That's correct, and it makes sense. This is the school in a town that is all white. This was an age of complete segregation among races, whites and blacks, whites and Native Americans. So when we talk about the first 1,000 men who got jobs, and none of those jobs went to black men who were also migrating here for this work, when this was found out, there were protests, and that's how blacks began to get hired.
There's a black American worker here.
Yes, here.
Here as well.
Mm-hmm. But 20,000 workers and 44 blacks hired over that time period was not a lot, but it was a great beginning.
Life in the new town was built around the construction of the dam.
If you lived in Boulder City, you could take what we'd call today a shuttle, buses that took you back and forth to the site. They also had a mess hall, and they'd feed you. The mess hall did 3 meals a day and lots to eat. So during the Great Depression, that was as good as it got.
But there was a price to pay for these perks. The government appointees that ran Boulder City wanted a compliant workforce.
The city manager was a guy named Sims Ely, and he did not want to put up with any misbehavior. So even after Prohibition ends, no booze, no gambling.
It was getting tough to keep the young dam workers, average age 37, away from spending their leisure time exploring the temptations of nearby Las Vegas. And the authorities tried hard to control them using different methods. One of which was by paying part of their salaries with currency they could only spend in Boulder City.
This collection of coins is a selection of what were called scrips. So they're a local currency, if you like. And you can see that because it's got here, good for trade only at Boulder City Company stores. So that's a dollar coin there. And it would have been paid to workers 30% of their wage. The rest of it would have been in dollars. Now, the idea was, firstly, that you're keeping money here within the community, but secondly, it's unlikely that this would have been accepted out at Las Vegas, where gambling and drinking was very common. And that kind of behavior wasn't as welcome here in Boulder City. So I've got a dollar of scrip here. You've got 50 cents, a quarter, 10 cents, 5 cents. So there's the whole range of coins here. And they've got these lovely images of the Hoover Dam printed on them. The Hoover Dam was to be the largest concrete structure ever built, requiring an incredible 5 million barrels of Portland cement and 4.5 million tons of aggregate. But using this much concrete posed some serious challenges, which would need some innovative solutions, along with some good old-fashioned elbow grease.
The amount of concrete required for the Hoover Dam was unprecedented. And in this barren spot, there was no infrastructure to support it. As a result, the raw materials to make the concrete were transported by rail from Las Vegas, and 2 manufacturing plants were built nearby for processing. The concrete was delivered to the site by a complex series of cableways that were stretched across the Black Canyon. And on the 6th of June 1933, the first huge bucket filled with 8 cubic yards of the stuff was placed. Construction of the dam's foundations was now underway. And today, I'm being shown around inside the dam, surrounded by the concrete that was laid nearly 90 years earlier.
That's quite a view.
It's a gorgeous view. You're about 350 feet above the Colorado River from this point, on the Arizona side, roughly halfway up the wall.
And all around us is the concrete that's keeping the water in the reservoir.
Absolutely. If you take the magnitude of how much concrete they poured, 6.6 million tons. That's enough concrete that we could run a sidewalk across the equator.
As concrete sets or cures, it gives off an enormous amount of heat.
They have said that if you could take the heat and funnel it into a building, they could bake 1/2 ton of loaves of bread a day just from the heat of the concrete.
As it cures.
As it cures.
This much concrete would normally take 125 years to harden. So the team building the Hoover Dam had to think of a new way to cool it.
They ran water pipes, 2 inches in diameter, and they would take the water from the Colorado River, run it through the concrete, and they'd run it for about 72 hours to help it cure correctly.
What is then the process of building this giant wall?
So rather than doing it in one big continuous pour, they broke it down into smaller forms, about 50 feet by 40 feet, and they would stagger it along.
Spreading the concrete was done by workers called puddlers. They'd use their shovels and feet to spread the mixture around, ensuring there were no air bubbles or debris which, if present, would weaken the concrete. On the 29th of May, 1935, the final bucket was laid. In less than 2 years, this incredible concrete monolith had risen from the river bedrock.
The thousands of men who toiled away, excavating the tunnels, climbing the canyon walls, and spreading millions of tons of concrete, all in this inhospitable environment, had achieved the seemingly impossible. They'd constructed the largest dam ever built. And it's an engineering triumph.
The dam succeeded in turning this parched, barren corner of the Mojave Desert into a watery oasis. Farmers across the states of Nevada, California, and Arizona now had a water supply they could depend on.
But the dam wasn't just built to provide a water supply. It had another equally important purpose. Buried deep inside that matrix of concrete and canyon rock is a beating heart that would help bring power to a growing nation.
The Hoover Dam certainly looks impressive from above. But the real action here takes place deep down below ground level where I'm headed now. It's where the hydroelectric plant, which brings power to California, Arizona, and Nevada, is to be found.
This is the way in for me. It's one of two main elevators that take dam employees down to the innermost workings of the complex. But just look at this, all this glorious Art Deco. It's more like something you'd expect to find at the entrance to a five-star hotel than on a huge concrete piece of civil engineering. I'm heading down 500 feet from the street level above. And right now, I am surrounded by the concrete of the Hoover Dam. On that side, the depths of Lake Mead. And on that side, even further down, is the Colorado River. And that was quick to get down.
Floor 1.
That's the bottom.
I'm off to meet electrician Richard, who's taking me into the bowels of the dam to show me where it all began.
Whereabouts are we within the facility?
Well, we are actually in one of the original diversion tunnels that they built to divert the Colorado River around the dam. So we're pretty deep underground right now. That is the whole tunnel around us. When they built it, they lined it with 3 feet of concrete, and now it's 50 feet in diameter here. And currently we use it for one of our penstock pipes, which means a large water pipe. And that's what feeds water to our generators today.
Oh, so originally the Colorado River would have flown through these outer walls here?
That's right, yep.
So that they could build the dam?
That's exactly right, yeah. And this pipe is 30 feet in diameter right now. It's carrying up to 96,000 gallons of water per second. Yeah, it's pretty massive.
There are 4 main penstock pipes at the Hoover Dam. And when they were originally planned, engineers realized they were going to be too large to fit into a normal-sized railway tunnel for transportation. So they decided to make them there. A manufacturing plant was built near the dam site to turn 3-inch thick sheets of steel plate into nearly 3 miles of pipe. The completed parts were transported by a 200-ton trailer pulled by powerful tractors to the canyon's edge. There, they were carefully lowered to the construction passages by a giant cableway. Most of the pipe sections were then joined together by huge steel pins, some of them 3 inches in diameter and weighing nearly 6 kilos each.
You got these pins that are placed in here. These are pressure pins. They're not rivets. They're not even screwed in. Nothing like that. It just put the pipe together. They pound that pressure pin in and it locks in place. That's all that's holding that pipe together.
Is this the original pipe?
This is the original pipe. And they actually purposely overbuilt everything because they weren't sure how strong the Colorado River was. They had an idea, but they didn't know its full magnitude. So they overbuilt these tunnels. They overbuilt the dam. Everything is overbuilt. They want this pipe to last over 1,000 years. That's the goal.
It's enormous. I mean, how far down does it go?
This goes probably another 1,000 feet down.
Yeah. Well, we can keep on strolling there. We've got some way to
definitely.
go. Oh, yes. Okay, here we go.
This is the Arizona power plant right here. This is one of the generators here. You're only seeing the top half of it right here. The rest of it's below the floor, right below our feet.
There's another one like this.
That's right, on the other side of the river. So the state line splits the river right down the middle.
So this is a generator plant here, is it?
That's correct. This is where the generation is occurring right now, and then the other half of the generator is actually below the floor, right underneath our feet. That vibration.
I can feel vibrations there.
That's right. That's the water hitting that turbine 40 feet below this floor.
There are 9 large generators on the Arizona side and 8 in the Nevada section.
But you can feel the power in this room, and it's scale again, Richard.
Very, very large. This power plant's 650 feet long. 80-foot ceilings here, 8 stories right above us.
Now we're getting a bit more perspective here.
Oh, yeah.
So just to break down one of these generator units, simply, what's down below?
So the water's coming off of the lake. It's going through that penstock pipe, and then that spins the shaft, comes up to the rotor right here. The rotor's inside that red housing, and that's where the energy is being produced.
It's beautiful, isn't it? This is 1930s technology that we've got.
Yeah,
here.
You're seeing 1930s technology still in the works and not having any issues that we can see right now.
Still doing its job.
Still doing what it was meant to do.
Where's this electricity going to? Where is it used?
It's used throughout the Southwest, so mostly California gets most of the power from here. Then we give some to Arizona and a little bit to Nevada.
Wow.
I say my goodbyes to Richard because I'm running late for my next appointment.
On a site as vast as this, anything that can help speed up getting from A to B makes life a lot easier. It's a great way to get around.
The Hoover Dam's power plant relies on its crack team of tradespeople, like hydroelectric mechanic Scott, to maintain its 1930s built machinery.
This is where we basically make stuff at. You can pretty much make anything here.
The amazing part of Scott's job is that he uses pretty much the same tools to replace parts that his predecessors did when they were building the dam.
Today we're just making a component which comes off of one of our pumps. We have this collar that protects the bushings of a pump. When they were doing a maintenance activity, one of them had to be removed because it was damaged. And we're basically remaking one. This is a good one. So I'm using this as a model to base all of my measurements off of.
Why would you not just buy in a replacement part?
A lot of times when you ask for replacement products, they're not readily available. Part of that reason is because of the age of a lot of the equipment we have. Some companies don't even exist anymore.
With no chance of getting a spare part off the internet, Scott has to be more resourceful.
So do you find yourself having to manufacture quite a few components?
Absolutely. It's good to maintain the old equipment because a lot of the old equipment is built to a higher standard than a lot of modern equipment.
Back in the day, nickel steel was used to make these collars. But now, Scott's using more modern stainless steel for added strength, and that way, getting the best of both worlds.
The old-timers had it all figured out.
Yeah.
And they did it with amazing accuracy. Everything was accurate beyond what you would expect from the 1930s. And this is the final component of our rounding.
Lovely.
Evolution.
But maintaining the Hoover Dam machinery is about more than replacing broken parts.
Hey, Buck.
The enormous heat generated by the power plant could, if left unchecked, cause a massive explosion. Luckily, there's a cooling system in place, but it's open to persistent attack by an alien invasion.
What's happening?
We got a report of high oil temps on the transformer for N6 generator. And so we're going to check it out. We've got an invasive species out here, it's quagga mussels. And so we have to constantly battle those. They clog up all our cooling systems all the time.
Quagga mussels aren't indigenous to these parts. They've been transported here while clinging to the hulls of boats. But they are a constant headache for the dam's maintenance team.
We pull our cooling water directly from the river and the lake, and we run it through our systems. So every pipe just has basically unfiltered cooling water from the river, and it is quite the job out here to maintain those piping systems.
Because these mussels, what they're like clinging to all your pipe work and blocking it up.
They attach to the pipes and they just clog it up. So a 2-inch pipe turns into a 1/4-inch pipe, and we can't get the water flow that we need to cool the systems.
So they're a real pest.
Yes, yes. We've tried to eliminate them in the systems, and so far we've failed every time.
I can't wait for the chance to roll up my sleeves and defend the dam against this aquatic attack.
This is us.
So this is our transformer here, is it?
Yes, it is.
So where should that be?
Down around 40.
Oh, okay, yeah. So that's high.
Yeah, definitely a little warm.
With the temperature nearly twice what it should be, it shows there's likely an obstruction in the cooling pipes.
Hi, Jonah. How you going, man?
Hey, Rob.
Okay, very good. Yeah, it looks heavy. Oh, lucky. Oh, no way.
So there you go.
Look at this. That's completely blocked.
Completely blocked.
And it's like this.
It's dense, yes.
This cementy, isn't it? And that's all the shells of these mussels. It's going to go in there, isn't it?
Yep.
I guess we clean that up then.
And this is the real dirty part.
It is just dig in, is it?
Dig in.
That is unbelievable.
There must be thousands of mashed up mussels in here, but not for long.
So it's all plugged up in all these pipes as well.
Nice big pipe cleaner.
Okay.
So we're gonna be rotting out each individual pipe.
So can I...
You wanna have a stab at it?
Yeah, go on, let's have a stab. Oh, that's a good one. Oh. It's quite satisfying, actually, but...
Right? And this is why you need those safety glasses.
Okay.
So it's going to be a little higher pressure water.
Yep.
And we'll shoot through each pipe, and you'll just see the remains fly out the other end.
If this work isn't done, electricity supplies across Southwest America could be seriously affected.
So these all cleaned out? They all flushed through?
Yep. We'll check with our guys to make sure that the cover is nice and clean, and we'll reinstall everything.
Great.
And so the plant survives to generate power for another day. And I feel happy to have played a small part in contributing to its safety.
This enormous power plant is nearly 90 years old, and it's a significant piece of American civil engineering history. But it's no relic today. It's as important now as when it was first built. And a lot of that is thanks to the engineering skills and expertise that's been handed down generation to generation. But the dam's future hasn't always been guaranteed. Within just a few years of its completion, there was a plot to blow it sky high.
The vast concrete structure of the Hoover Dam was originally built to provide barren desert land with a steady supply of manageable, precious water and power by taming the wild, temperamental Colorado River. And it worked spectacularly. Because of the dam, 45 million more people have boosted the populations of the 7 states around the Colorado River Basin since 1930. And cities like Los Angeles, San Diego, Denver, and Phoenix have grown and flourished. But the present-day Hoover Dam is facing a similar challenge to that overcome by its makers 9 decades ago.
On the other side of that vast wall of concrete is Lake Mead, America's largest man-made reservoir. At its peak, the lake holds 36 trillion litres of water. And the weight of that water is held back by the dam.
Stretching for 110 miles up the Colorado River and reaching depths of over 500 feet, Lake Mead is designed to harness Colorado's floodwater to create a reliable water source for towns, cities, and farmland. Around 25 million people in the southwest of the United States get their water from here.
And it's this water that drives the generators at the Hoover Dam.
In 1936, Lake Mead became a national recreation area, attracting millions of visitors a year. And it was because of this easy access to one of America's greatest engineering structures that the Hoover Dam was left vulnerable to enemy attack during the Second World War.
I've just trekked up slightly from the dam. I'm heading to this curious structure, perched up high on the ridge. And the closer I get, I can clearly see that it's obviously been built to try and blend in with these rocky surroundings.
This is a restricted zone with no public access, but I've been given special permission to come up here.
What this is it's a bunker left over from World War II era. But the majority of the electricity produced out of here is actually going to Southern California. During the war, a lot of our military manufacturing was down in the Long Beach, Los Angeles area of California. So this was built by the government in order to help protect the dam to ensure that no harm would come to the dam.
So this would have been manned during the war, would it?
Yeah, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Watch your head.
No snakes in here, right?
No, I went in and checked it.
Oh, all right.
They had a machine gun pit one of those machine guns with a tripod on there. And then you see the slits along the side for sharpshooters. There was no refrigerators, no air conditioning, so.
And during the summer, it must have been absolutely brutal.
Absolutely horrible. Because you know how the heat of the concrete will just absorb everything.
For security reasons, all visitor tours were stopped after the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941, and traffic flow was controlled by the military.
Everyone who had a reason to go from Nevada to the Arizona side, they actually were convoyed by military personnel. They had to drive with an arm out the window, hand on the wheel, so that, no funny business would happen.
Do we know if anyone ever tried to sabotage the dam?
Yes, there was a plot cooked up by Nazi saboteurs that they were going to rent fishing boats out at Lake Mead, come up the canyon, and place explosives on the intake towers in order to neutralize the dam.
Luckily, Mexican government intelligence discovered the plan, and the US authorities were warned in time. The iconic Hoover Dam and its man-made reservoir now face an even bigger threat than Nazi terrorism.
If you look at the rocks behind me here, you can see how they change in color from being very dark up top to light down below. And that's because everything below that line used to be underwater. Lake Mead is shrinking, and it's shrinking fast.
Unfortunately, we're in the 23rd year of a historic drought, the driest 23-year period in the last 1,200 years. It brings us to these very low levels that we're at now.
If the level of the lake continues to fall, it could endanger the water supply for millions of Americans and dramatically affect the Hoover Dam's ability to produce power.
The challenge of solving the problems that climate change has brought to the flow of water from the Colorado River to Lake Mead is as big as the one that led to the Hoover Dam being created in the first place.
Much like the Hoover Dam was constructed in the early 1930s to solve a water supply distribution problem, we're facing a similar problem like that right now, except it's a water supply imbalance issue. The water being released from Hoover Dam is greater than the water coming into Lake Mead, and that's been an ongoing issue. But we're working together here in the lower basin states, the federal government, Mexico, tribes, to come up with solutions that are long-term, not just for the next year or 2 years or 5 years, but for the next several decades, for the next generation.
When it was built in the 1930s, the Hoover Dam was a vision of the future, a structure of unimaginable proportions. It provided water across the southwest of the United States, allowing cities like Los Angeles and Las Vegas to flourish. It produced clean energy, powering over 1 million homes. And it helped regulate the flow of one of North America's largest rivers, bringing an end to the devastating cycle of droughts and floods that had plagued the region. The Hoover Dam really is one of the greatest engineering achievements of the 20th century.
Next time,
Welcome to Panama.
a dangerous tropical jungle
An incredibly hostile environment.
and a steely desire to connect oceans
If the Panama Canal was a body, this would be the brain.
leads to a bold engineering decision
Are you sure we're going to fit through there?
to create a magnificent man-made wonder of the world.
The Panama Canal.